Okay, we can start inshallah.
Okay, it will start inshallah.
Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I want to keep it informal. I may speak for like 15 minutes and stop, and we have some questions, and then maybe another 15 minutes. I don't want to keep it too long. It's informal because you're my family, so it's not going to be like a lecture. It's going to be more of a discussion. The subject is angels, and after Tawheed, I think that angels is, for me personally, the most fascinating of all theological discourses. I find it endlessly fascinating, angels, and enriching. And as we know, it's the second of our principles of belief. We believe in Allah, and then Malaika, and then the rest. And some ulama even say that Malaika is part of Tawheed. The actual discourse of Malaika is part of Tawheed. And it was never discussed in Kalam, so we don't really have a developed theology of angels. Until, of course, Ustad Mursi, who talks about angels in a way that no other scholar in the last 500 years has talked about angels. And I think that without understanding angels properly, we cannot understand Tawheed. It's impossible to understand Tawheed without understanding angels, which may come as a surprise. Unfortunately, it's because in our tradition, angels is a subject that is understudied. It's understudied and it's misunderstood. And I'm not sure whether it's misunderstood because it's understudied, or whether it's understudied because it's misunderstood. So it's the chicken and the egg thing that Barish was mentioning today. Angels is not something that you find much material on. It's very, very little. All I know is that for a subject which is second only to Tawheed in importance, it's very hard to understand why ulama are not writing about angels. They haven't written about angels. Very, very few have written anything substantial about angels. And if you look at Christian theology, you will find a very rich angelology, right? A very, very rich Christian angelology. And in fact, our understanding, or the Quranic understanding of angels, is far more sophisticated than the Christian understanding of angels, and yet the Christians have written far more about angels than we have. So this is just a bit of background. Up until the 17th century, let's go back now 300 years, most human cultures believed that we lived in a living world, a living universe, a universe that was representative, a universe that was full of signs. So we could say basically before the 17th century, the whole of the human race saw the universe as having meaning. Now we understand that if we read the Quran, as you know, we know that there are ayat on the afaq and in the anfus. And this was basically general. This was something that most cultures before the 16th century understood. So before the scientific revolution, before the industrial revolution, before the Enlightenment, before all of these upheavals which happened in the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries, which secularized society, they also secularized the universe, basically. Because when Newton comes along, he turns the universe into a mechanical universe. The universe becomes a mechanical universe, and God, instead of being Hazir or Nazir, instead of being present with his creation at all times, is moved out of the picture and becomes the prime mover, the first mover. And this is where we get deism. So God then becomes someone or something that begins the whole process, and then the whole universe then runs on its own like clockwork. This is Newtonian physics. And of course, there is, in that vast piece of machinery, there is no room for life, there is no room for spirit, and there is no room for angels. So basically, with the scientific revolution, and it's not just Newton, we have Copernicus, we have the, all of the astronomical revolutions of the 16th century, then we have the Enlightenment, then we have the philosophers, we have Descartes, and God is banished. God is taken off the throne, and he's put on the sidelines. And with it, angels disappear. Okay. Now, of course, they don't disappear, but they disappear from human consciousness. So a 16th century or a 15th century Christian or a Muslim would be very easily talking about angels and jinn and ruhaniyat. Very easy, because these cultures saw themselves as being one with the creation. But after the scientific revolution and all the other upheavals that I mentioned, human beings became separated from creation. And creation becomes an object of study. And that distance means that we no longer see meaning in the universe. Now, of course, the Newtonian view of the universe did originally state that there is a God who created the universe, but the universe itself is devoid of intelligence, because the universe is like a self-replicating machine. So although Newton has a kind of understanding of God, the universe that he constructs in his theories is a universe of matter in motion, without purpose, without life, without intelligence. So basically, he mechanizes the universe. And that, for people, human consciousness, the notion of angels, the notion of baraka, the notion of ruhaniyat, the notion of malakut, they disappear. So the universe becomes secularized, basically. Of course, this happens in the West. It starts in the West, in the geographic West, but as you know, when the West catches cold, the East sneezes. Yes? So what happens there comes here, and of course Hazrat Ustad knew this when he started to write the Risale-i-Nur. He knew that these currents of materialism and secularism and atheism and atheistic materialism were starting to approach the Muslim world, which is why he writes the Risale-i-Nur, basically. So basically, since the 17th century, the heavens have been secularized. The universe has been secularized. God has been taken out of the equation. Angels do not exist. There is no such thing as malakut. There is no such thing as baraka. All of the things that for us are part of existence, they disappear because of the scientific revolution, and also because of the Enlightenment, which happens afterwards. And of course, later on with philosophers like Nietzsche, who said God is dead, God also disappears from the equation. Now, that may sound rather negative, but this is the reality of the past 500 years in Western civilization. And what happens in Western civilization also spreads everywhere else. So our education systems are geared towards secularizing not just ourselves, but secularizing the universe. So the universe does not have meaning. And we all know that Ustad talks about Mane Esmi Mane Harfi, right? That behind everything there is a meaning. Everything points to something else. But what these people did, what the scientists did, the philosophers did, they took away the meaning from the universe. And part of that meaning is to do with angels, as we'll see. However, if we bring ourselves up to the present point, now, which century we're in now? 21st? 21st century. I still always think it's the 20th century. I'm still not used to the 21st century. As far as the Western world is concerned, and I'm talking here not about the... when I talk about the West, I usually don't talk about the geographic West. Because what about Japan? What about Australia? What about New Zealand? You know, they're not geographically West, but they are very Western in their orientation. Recently, in the past like 40, 50 years, there's been a kind of rebirth of the notion of the universe as a living universe. Has anyone heard of the Gaia theory?
Yeah.
Would you like to explain it?
The name Gaia is coming from a like ancient god, like god of nature. So Gaia theory says the earth as a whole is a living creation. Like if there are some examples, like there shouldn't be like oceans shouldn't be in this the like balance of minerals, and like in atmosphere should be just consist of carbon dioxide and methane normally, but like whole earth is very different than how like chemistry says it should be. Like
so the earth is more than the sum of its parts. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the whole appearance and chemistry is of the earth is very different than like in animates. Like the inanimate state of how it should be according to the chemistry. So like this is a living creature, we can say it says.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. What's happening is, after 500 years, the Western world, because we as human beings are worshipping, we are worshipful human beings. Homo religiosus is the name. Every human being has an innate desire to worship, right? So what is happening now in the West, and has been happening since the hippie movement? Do you all know what a hippie is? You've heard of hippies, right?
But maybe you explain. Maybe it might.
I was slightly too young to be a hippie. You know, I was just after the hippie movement. The same kind of ideas, you know, the Greens. You know the Green movement?
Yeah.
Ecology, green movement, environment, all of these things. They are realizing that after 500 years, there's a saying in English, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? So you're washing your baby in a bath, throw the water out, don't throw the baby out. You know, you don't throw them both out. So what happened in the last 500 years was that everything was thrown out. You know, the truths which are baked in us, you know, to worship, to revere, these were destroyed. And so there are movements now, such as the Gaia movement, such as the Green movement, which you can see here and there in the West. There are different sort of people say, well, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, right? You hear this, so, and I never understand what this means.
They don't understand either.
They don't understand either. You know, but there is something, you know. Why are there so many science fiction movies? Right? There's a desire for something other, right? Something different. So there is, I'm not going to say it's hopeful, but it shows that there is a backlash. It shows that there is a reaction against 500 years of secularization. And don't think it hasn't happened here, because it has. It's happened everywhere. Every country in the world, the education system is a secularized system. and it doesn't teach that the world has meaning. But the people are starting now to, have these ideas, the Gaia theory, the ecologists and so on. Okay, that's enough on that. Actually, does anyone here know anything about quantum theory?
Quantum theory.
Quantum mechanics.
Yeah, like having the probability of existing and non-existing at the same time.
Well, in the subatomic world, it's a seething massive activity, as you
And
say.
it is not non-deterministic probably.
And it's not known what's happening, but there is motion there. So there is an idea of a living universe. So it hasn't completely gone away. Religion can never completely go away. It always manifests as something new. Let's go now to Christian theology. In Christian theology, the place of angels in the creation is not very different to how we understand them in the Quran and Islam. For example, in the theology of Thomas Aquinas, St. Thomas Aquinas, the angels are seen as intelligences, kind of forces, really. Intelligences that work through the material constituents of the creation. So, for example, they would look at a tree and they would say that this tree is an example of intelligences that are at work with a material form. So you can see in Christian theology that there is a similarity to how we understand angels, or at least how Hazrat Ustad understands angels. So for the Christians, the angels are seen as intelligences that work through the material things in creation. They started off by saying angels basically are what populate the heavens, the stars and the planets. They sort of projected their idea of angels out there. But in fact, later theologians said that angels are everywhere. Christian theologians. That wherever there is creation, there are angels. And this is not 100 miles away from what we believe as Muslims. And in fact, the angels, according to the Christians, were understood to be the means through which God expressed himself. So when we talk about, or when Ustad talks about mirrors, the Christians actually understood angels as the mirrors through which God reflects himself to the universe. Or the universe itself is a collection of mirrors. And the Christians understood the angels to be mirror-like entities which reflect God's names. In other societies, for example, in polytheistic societies such as in India, Hinduism, Hinduism have many gods.
They're actually angels.
Endless.
Endless gods. Someone said the other day, Indians are computer experts who worship cows, which I thought was an interesting way.
All true.
It's all true. And of course, the gods of Hinduism are the different cosmic powers, basically. So, in a polytheistic society, there is also an understanding of angels, but it is completely skewed. It is completely diverted or perverted, you could say. So they're seeing things which they can't really articulate in the way that Christians can, or Muslims can. They articulate it in their own way, and they say gods. But basically, if Thomas Aquinas were alive today, he would say, well, the Hindus, basically, they're talking about angels, but they describe them as gods. And of course, the big difference is that in Hindu cosmology, the gods actually have creative powers, whereas in Christian theology, angels do not have powers. And again, that's a similarity with our understanding and our tradition. So you're thinking, why haven't I got to Ustad here? Because most of this is taken from the 29th word. let's talk a bit about materialism. We need
Can
to.
I ask something? Or,
Yeah,
might
it's
not be
actually a
related
good place to
to-
stop. Yeah.
It might not be related to the topic, but when you said Christian, Christian theology on angels, they don't have power to create.
Yes.
Do they have power to disobey? As in the example of devil was an angel according to Christianity.
It's a huge problem. I think when they talk about fallen angels, because they do talk about fallen angels, I think they're talking about jinn, but they don't realize it.
Oh, you know how Indians talk about gods, but they mean angels. They talk about, Christians talk about jinns, but they just call them
Fallen angel. I think
Fallen.
so. I think so.
So,
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't solved that in my own head yet, so I can't. I mean, but it seems to be sensible. Yeah.
yeah.
So materialism. This is important. When it comes to materialism, okay, the idea of a living being with attributes of perfection such as intelligence, ilm, hikmah, adl, order, is totally at odds with the notion of a mechanistic universe. For a materialist, you cannot you cannot make a materialist understand that there is purpose and order in the creation, or that things manifest generosity, for example, or values. And this is Descartes' fault, because Descartes said the only things that are worth thinking about are the things that can be measured, right? But you can't measure values, you can't measure attributes, you can't measure beauty, you can't measure these things. So the philosophers were also at fault, and this is why we have materialism. And with the growth of materialism in the late Middle Ages, and particularly after the scientific revolution, and particularly after the Industrial Revolution, which began in my own hometown of Birmingham, but long before I was born, so don't blame me. And of course the Enlightenment. The universe was seen as matter in motion. Right? Matter, inert matter that's moving. And to a certain extent we have the Greek philosophers to blame. Democritus with his atoms, these little sort of round like snooker or billiard balls that move around, which we know now don't really exist, because of quantum physics. So materialism sees the world as matter in motion. And of course causality, that's another problem, tabi'at, causality. And we have Aristotle to blame for this, by introducing the word tabi'ah, which we use, nature, Mother Nature, which is a huge problem. So causality, of course, when we have cause and effect, sabab or sabab, it's a system in which the main players, the causes and the effects, are blind, deaf, dumb, inert. If you say to materialists that a particle of air manifests wisdom, they will laugh at you. If you say to a biologist that a particle of food that enters your body enters under a command or an order, they will laugh at you. And yet, everything they do themselves in their lives has a purpose. But they deny purpose for the whole of the creation. So materialism is a big problem. The universe is just matter in motion. Matter is mediated by causes which have no purpose, which have no point. This is for the materialists. There's no overriding objective. There's no overriding aspiration. There's no point, actually. There's a biologist, and I can't remember his name. He said, the more that I look at the creation and see the order in the creation, the more I realize it has no purpose. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Our brother here, the artist, if you look at his wonderful pictures, if you say, no one painted them, they're just there. This is what the biologists are saying to us, everything that we see is showing order and beauty and harmony, they say is purposeless. They have to say that. Why do they have to say that? What's the alternative?
God.
Precisely. So when they see order, which they definitely do, when they see harmony, which they definitely do, either they say it belongs to a creator, or they say it's purposeless.
Meaningless.
And they say it's purposeless. And this is what they teach our children. We send our children to school for 6 hours a day to be taught this rubbish, basically. So the question is, how can causes which are dumb and blind and without any kind of purpose, how can they come together and make a human being like this chap here? If they are blind and deaf and dumb, or this table, or this water. So they have to find alternative explanations, such as evolution. So there, for example, there was nothing, 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 and then there was an explosion, and then there was something. Right? Yeah, yeah. And then they call us superstitious. What's more superstitious than nothing, 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 and then suddenly nothing explodes? So they have to do this, because otherwise the alternative, as you said, they have to accept God. So, how can causes create their effects and bring about all of these wonderful things? How can the cherry tree in my garden come from a little stone, right? A tiny little stone that doesn't have an intellect, that doesn't have a plan of its own, that doesn't have a purpose of its own. How can it bear a whole cherry tree on its shoulders? You know, Oster talks about a small grain bearing a whole tree on its shoulders. What he means is, how can a cause create something like that? Now, you may be thinking, where are the angels in this? Well, the way that the universe works demonstrates that not only the existence of power and intelligence, but lots of other attributes as well. You can look at a cherry tree and you can well, let's think of some attributes. Look at a cherry tree. Whoever creates the cherry tree has to have knowledge, right? Any other attributes?
Engineer. A professional engineer.
Yeah, it has to be have some kind of understanding of how a tree works, right?
Yeah.
Has to have power,
Has to have power,
Mercy and compassion. maybe.
mercy and compassion,
will,
will,
knowledge.
knowledge, yeah, generosity,
Arts.
yeah, I mean,
All attributes of Almighty Allah.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah,
Should
power,
have.
absolutely. Generosity, we have this cherry tree, and it's really, really tall, and it gives thousands of cherries. The birds get to them before we get to them, so, but Allah gives them, you know, endless generosity. But this is problematic this is a problem for materialism. It's a problem. And they can't solve it. It's impossible. Either they say it's purposeless, or they say there is a creator, and the creator is mediated in his creation by angels. This is where angels comes in. So, you've given me these attributes. You can see wisdom, purpose, order, harmony, will. But we see other things. We see bestowment, right? Bestowal. We see razaqiyya. We see ra'uf. We see so many different things. How is this to be explained? How can you reconcile this with the idea that this is just wood and fibre and inert matter? It doesn't match. It doesn't match. So I want you to keep the idea of causality and purpose in mind, because we're going to return to it further on. The fact is, either we ignore what we see in creation, or we have to believe in angelic presence. This is where angels comes in. Either we ignore it and say it's purposeless, or we have to invoke angels. Now, the only problem with this talk is it's part 2 of a longer lecture, but I didn't want to send everyone to sleep by giving you part 1. Part 1 actually is basically telling you what Quran and Hadith says about angels, but I'm sure you know better than I do that issue, so I didn't want to go there. Let's get to Ustad now. So you know that Hazrat Ustad's main work on angels comes in the 29th word, which deals with ruhaniyat, it deals with spirit beings and angels, and he provides a rationale and a purpose for the existence and functions of angels. The only other book that I've found really that talks about angels is a book by, I think, Suyuti. You may correct me if I'm wrong, in the 16th century. I can't remember the title. But since the 16th century, no one has written about angels in the way that Ustad writes. And even Ustad only wrote part of the 29th word on angels. But it's so rich, it could be a whole book, actually. He doesn't say a lot about the appearance of angels or the nature of angels, the names, or their different ranks. You can find those in books on hadith. What Ustad focuses on is reason and wisdom. And he says that reason, reality and wisdom dictates that the whole universe must be populated by conscious beings. The whole of the universe.
Every corner of the universe.
Every single corner of the universe. There is no neutral spot in the universe.
Empty place.
There is no empty place in the universe, because Allah wishes to gaze upon His beauty, and therefore He gazes through His own vision, but He also gazes through the vision of His creatures, and they have to be conscious. So what Ustad starts to do, he starts to say, if you look at the heavens and you think that they're not populated by conscious creatures, because we are told that space is a vacuum. Of course it's not.
Yeah.
He starts off in actually the same way that Aristotle and Plato, when they talk about intelligences, and also the Christian theologians, starts talking about, first of all, just to get into our heads. If you look at the sky, if you look at the stars, don't think that they are not populated by conscious beings, because they are ayat. And there are ayat that I will never be able to see. There must be beings which can actually appreciate the divine creation. So this is how he starts. That's the beginning of his method, to prove that angels exist. In other words, there are conscious beings other than us, other than human beings, other than jinn, which populate the places that we can never have access to. So that's his very, very interesting way of proving. You know, I can't say that it's proving it empirically, because it's an indication, not a proof. But Ustad's indications are actually stronger than proofs, because they appeal not just to the rational intellect, they also appeal to the intuitive intellect. So he starts off by talking about the whole universe is full of conscious beings. And then he says, because the earth is full of conscious beings, then the rest of the universe must be full of conscious beings. And then, of course, he refers back to the tradition, which we know is the cornerstone of the Risale-e-Nur, and that's the hidden treasure tradition. You all know it. Kuntu kanzan makhfiya, right? I was a hidden treasure, and I created in order to be known, and to be loved, and to be worshipped. And that's absolute. It's not just earth, it's everywhere. So the universe itself, the cosmos itself, demands the existence of beings in it who will acknowledge and appreciate the Creator. He makes this quite clear. And he says the reach of humans and jinn, our reach is limited. And worshipfulness, we talked today about worshipfulness, has to be accounted throughout the whole of the creation. And this is where we get to the first quote, which is, it's got number 8, that was just for my reference. He says, indeed, angels are present in every aspect, in every sphere of the universe, each charged with a duty of worship. It may be said, according to both the narrations of hadiths and the wisdom in the order of the world, that from lifeless planets and stars to raindrops, all are ships or vehicles for a kind of angel. The angels mount these vehicles with divine permission and travel observing the manifest world. They represent their praise and glorification. I used to think that, okay, there are human beings and there are jinn and there are angels here and there. But Hazrat Ustad says angels are everywhere. Wherever there is a created being, there is an angel. Every single particle, every single atom, every single raindrop,
Droplet of the brain.
every single
Every
drop
small-
of rain, every single breath that you breathe out, there is an angel representing that mostly inert matter. If you think about inert matter, if you think about rocks and mountains and rivers and clouds, they are also making tasbihat. But if they are inert matter, if we have a hierarchy of being. You know, we have animate beings, we have inanimate beings. The inanimate beings particularly are in need of angels to represent their glorification. And Ustad says that the rain, for example, a raindrop, every raindrop has an angel. The angel, he says, is created out of the same matter as the thing that it is representing. So every drop of rain actually is an angel in a sense. It's difficult to sort of conceptualize because it makes you think that whatever you look at is angels, but it's not quite as literal as that. So,
Perhaps can we say the aspect of melekut?
yes,
They
yes,
are, yes, intermingled,
yes,
but
that's exactly what we're coming
the
to.
side we are observing
Yes.
physical things.
Absolutely, absolutely,
But another dimension.
absolutely. You've actually,
As if they split. Yesterday, I think you reminded the example of tree,
yes,
a lot of full of meanings, full of
Yes.
wisdoms. The angels are reading, stating, presenting to Almighty Allah, as if
yes,
the spirit of the tree.
absolutely.
Yeah. You
Absolutely.
cannot say the spirit, but as if important, I think.
We can't
As
say
well.
that, we can't look at the cherry tree and say, look, we're looking at angels there.
No.
But actually, you're absolutely right. But let's get to that. So, according to Said Nursi, angels are everywhere. They are ubiquitous. Wherever we see created beings, we see angels. There are angels. Every created being, from an atom to a star, is a kind of vehicle for an angel. Every single created being has with it an angel. And that's slightly problematic for other reasons that I don't want to get into. So if you consider, for example, the cherry tree in the garden, it is a reality, according to Sayyid Nursi, that every atom in that tree is carried by an angel. When we talk about Hamalatul Arsh in Quran, right, the angels who bear the throne of God, how Ustad understands that, at least how I understand how he understands that, is that the angel, well, first of all, the tree The tree is a unity of parts, right? It has seeds, it has leaves, it has branches, it has twigs, it has blossoms, it has fruits, and it has flowers. Every single part of that tree is represented by an angel. Every single individual particle, every single individual atom.
As stated in the hadith, 40,000.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Maybe,
Is carried by an angel.
maybe forces in physics are
Of course.
Maybe forces in physics are angels. That's a very good point.
Or they are bearing, they are representing.
He also says the whole tree is also represented by an angel. So every single part is represented by an angel, and the whole tree is represented by an angel. So we can see that there are different kinds of angels, there are different functions of angels, there are different ranks of angels, there are hierarchies of angels, there are archangels, such as Jibreel alayhi salam, such as Azrael alayhi salam. And so there are angels for all of the atoms and molecules that make up all of the universe. So the tree is actually a hierarchical angelic structure. It doesn't mean we're looking at angels, but as Aliabi said, from Malakut to Mulk, the angel acts like an interface. So if you imagine a coin, right, with two sides, one side is looking to Malakut, the angel. Let's imagine the angel as a coin. One side is looking to Malakut and receiving the effulgence of the divine names. And then on the other side, the Mulk side, we see those names translated into something that we can understand. So if you think of a tree, like a cherry tree, the cherry tree has a Malakut side, which is purely angelic. But those angels at the same time have another face, and they look towards us. So when I look at the tree, I see wood, I see leaves, I see cherries, I see
Fruits,
fruits.
leaves.
But on the other side, what the angels are receiving from Allah are generosity, compassion, rahmah, knowledge. And of course the angels, we know that angels may know one name or two names or three names. Yeah? Only human beings know all of the names. So the cherry tree, of course, is limited. It has a limited, it is limited by its own transience. And it can only reflect so much. It's like this cup can only hold so much water. The cherry tree can only reflect so much because it's a cherry tree. It's not a whale, it's not a fish, it's not a cloud, it's a cherry tree. So the angels who are responsible for reflecting Allah's names, like mirrors.
They have Luminara?
No, they don't have Anna at all. That's where they're completely different. What they do is, like a prism, if you shine white light on a prism, it refracts into different colors. Is that right? So the angel, in a sense, is like a prism, which is receiving the white light of divine names, and then deflecting them to us as the material constituents of the universe.
Ustad explains from seed to fruit, using ilal evveli vel ahiri vel zahiri vel batini, using four holy names and the mulk and melekut side of the objects.
Yes. So
Why do you,
we're almost done.
sorry,
So-
one question about the deflecting part. It's,
Yes.
it's very interesting. The first time I'm hearing that.
Yeah.
Why do you think they are deflecting the light coming to them to Alim Shahadat, yes, to this realm, whereas we and the rest of the creatures are reflecting the divine names. So what's the difference? And did you mean like a different thing?
Maybe because I'm not a scientist, I'm confusing reflecting and deflecting.
It is refracting.
Refracting.
Anyway,
Sorry, that's my
it's a metaphor.
yes, my
No,
scientific-
but I know it's metaphor. But I'm asking like if you mean something different there, or it's just more or less the same thing.
No, it's more or less the same thing. I mean, I can say it about you. The angels that are bearing Allah's names, which make you, because you are a reflection of Allah's names, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
They are receiving things from Allah which are unique because you are unique. And then the mulk side of the angel is what we see as Barish. Yeah.
So can we say that we are seeing more or less similar things between angels and materialistic whales or causes, whatever you like to call. And one of them is in the Malakut side, the other one is in the Mulk side. Both of them are reflecting or mirroring divine names on there.
I think we can, but I think it's even more important than that. I think Hazrat Ustad has solved the problem of causality through angels, as we'll see, and there's not much left. So each angel recognizes one or two divine names, but not all of them. Only, as you said, only human beings can recognize and appreciate all of the divine names. The angel is created out of light, right? And we have optical light and we have spiritual light. Optical light is a manifestation of spiritual light. So angels are created out of spiritual light, but I mean we can understand through optical light how this works, because energy, light is energy, right? And we're told that creation basically is energy that is just solidified, or I mean I don't know how they in science articulate it. So the angel has one face that's oriented towards Allah, and at God's command the angel bears that name, right? So the Hamalatul Arsh is Allah's power. So the angel bears the power, the name, carries the name, and presents the name in an outward external form, which we see as the cherry tree, as the water cooler, as Barish, as this stairway, as this glass, and all of the constituents of creation.
Sorry, one sentence I'd like to share. Of a certainty, therefore, just as angels are their physical, their representatives expressing their glorification in the world of the inner dimensions of things, so are they the counterparts, dwellings and mosques of those angels in the external and manifest world. What does counterparts mean here? Counterpart.
Because
the tree is counterpart and angel is representing it.
The cherry tree is the counterpart of the divine names which are reflected on the cherry tree. So Malakut, we think that Malakut is somehow a translation of this world. No, this world is a translation of Malakut. And the translators are the angels.
Can you repeat that? Can you elaborate it?
The hidden world, right? The world that we can't see, where all of the names are. The timeless world, where Akhirat is, and, timeless and spaceless world, Malakut. Our world, which is spatial and temporal, is a translation of that world. So what happens here is a reflection of what happens in Malakut, right? So when Allah says, when you see the shooting star, right? Allah says these are the devils who are being stoned.
Yes.
So we live in a symbolic universe. We live in a semiotic universe, right? Everything has a correspondence. So when we see water, actually water is not water, water is Rahmah. So water is a counterpart of Rahmah.
Something is happening in the Malakut side.
Yes.
You see here physical things.
We see it, yeah.
So angels lays in the between, this Malakut and Mulk, or
Yes.
like they're the carrying over this translation?
They are the interface. The interface.
Interface.
Now, people have problems with this.
API.
I don't know what that means, but I'm sure I'm sure you explained it to me.
It came to my mind as a computer example. Like imagine Malakut, Alim Malakut as like a program that's running inside the computer, and Alim Mulk is like the screen, what you see on the screen.
It's a good analogy. It's a good analogy.
Colin hocam.
Does it mean Malakut is like in the future, and us, we are in the past or present.
No, Malakut is timeless.
Timeless.
Like,
Past and present, they are the same.
so basically, maybe the other world is, for example, maybe in the other world, if they pour this water, it means in our world it's going to happen. Is it going to happen?
Are you talking about things which happen in Malakut will happen in the future here?
Yeah, something.
Maybe, sometimes, yes. I mean, Malakut is timeless. You know, like when you dream, there is a very, very different time when you dream. There is no space in a dream, but there is time, a kind of time. So Malakut, because there is also Jabarut and other levels, and I don't want to get into the technicalities because I don't understand them properly. But the time is different in Malakut, and what happens here, if you read the 9th word,
Yes.
which is a work of pure genius, I have to say. Ustad talks about the upheavals and revolutions which happen in Malakut. We see them here as, for example, morning, noon,
Evening.
afternoon,
Yeah.
evening. These are upheavals which are happening in Malakut. And they manifest in our world as morning, noon, you know, getting old, for example. That's an upheaval in Malakut. And it manifests here in a way that we can understand as causal beings.
And Ustad is saying about Melekut, very interesting in 29th word about Hirat. In Melekut side, particles and the stars are equal.
Yes.
Equal before Allah.
Yes.
Here there are veils, causes, but what about Melekut side? No veil, no opposites.
Or fewer veils, maybe.
Yes.
I'm conscious of the time, so
Sorry.
Sorry, there is a mathematics, there is a Laplace transformation. It means
I'm never going to understand
some
it.
of you can understand. Time domain and Laplace domain is different than each other. For example, when we study on signals,
Right.
signals is not solvable by the time domain. When you transform it to the Laplace domain, we can solve it. We can handle it.
It also like
It is timeless,
helps you
basically.
examine the problem independent of time domain.
Wow.
It makes time.
So you project the whole time frame into a single image, let's say, like in a single frame. So you can understand it.
You are changing the domain, you know, like
Okay.
you understand Melekut.
Can we
Only
take
shift them
each
from-
other's contact details so you can explain it to me in easier, maybe single syllable words?
Don't expect them to understand.
These brothers are engineers. We cannot understand.
Okay, brother. Okay.
We should
Language
make our own
bench.
discussion.
But
Three of them are engineers, so
he sounded very solid. and-
they can understand each other, but we cannot understand.
So basically then, the tree, and I use the tree because when I usually teach by Zoom, there is a cherry tree in our garden, so I mean it's very easy to
Oh,
use
that's
it
yes, yes.
as an example. You're used to the cherry tree. You're probably tired of the cherry tree. The tree is a collection of divine names, basically, right? The universe is full of ayat. You know, Hazrat Ali, alayhi salam radiallahu anh, he said that the universe is built on the pillars of the divine names. The divine names are the pillars that hold up the universe. I mean, it's quite clear. So the tree is a collection of divine names, and they are mediated by beings of light that are known as angels. The angels are the interface. The angels are the intermediaries. Now these words sound a little bit shocking, right? Like when we were talking about necessary share the other night when we talked about Anna. Because people don't like the idea of intermediaries, right? People say, the angels, do they help Allah? Does Allah need angels? Well, we'll see that, no, he doesn't need angels. The angels present the names. We cannot see the names. We are human. We cannot see the names. The angels are there to help us see the names. Because the angels only see one name, right? And they're not self-aware, like a baby is not self-aware. They're aware, but they're not self-aware, right? So when a baby looks at its mother, the baby doesn't realize that it's not part of its mother. It thinks it's part of its mother. So what I'm trying to get at here is, it's not heretical to say that the angel is looking at Allah. And again, human language is very, very weak. It cannot bear the weight of Quranic truth. So you have to, I apologize for using these words which may sound a bit strange. So the angels are the interface, I think Barish said interface, intermediaries. They are responsible for communicating the names to us. They are the ones who communicate the names to us. They present the names to us. They glorify those names. In other words, when you look at the cherry tree tells you that it cannot create itself. Right? This is what tasbihat is. It means we exonerate Allah of any defect. So when you look at a cherry tree, do you think the cherry tree can create itself? To create itself, it would have to exist. To be able to create itself. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous. So, the positions that the angels take up. From the positions that the angels take up, it becomes clear that the names that we see are indeed the names of God. Not the names of angels, they're the names of God. The angels are static. Some of them are constantly in qiyam, some of them are constantly in ruku, some of them are constantly in sujood. What does it mean? It means they all have different functions. They're doing different things. Some have 3 wings, 6 wings, some have lots of wings, some have lots of mouths, lots of eyes. I mean, this is how Ustad talks about them.
There are aging functions. Sorry.
Whatever that is, yes. So the angels do 2 things. They present the names, but they also represent the glorification of the tree.
Yeah.
So when a biologist looks at a tree and says it's meaningless, we look at the tree and we see that the angels who are presenting the names are glorifying Allah. So there is purpose, there is generosity, all of the names we see. The biologist has to deny. Because if he doesn't deny, he has to accept. There's no middle way. Either you accept or you deny.
The tree has no conscience.
Precisely.
But serious consciously things are happening.
Because of the angels. Because of the angels.
Angels are reading, stating.
So from the physical, external point of view, the tree appears to be deaf, dumb, blind, unconscious and unaware. And yet the functions suggest something else. Yes, the functions suggest awareness, purpose, and that is down to the presence of angels. So it's difficult when you look at a tree. You don't see angels, but actually you don't see anything but angels, because they have this dual purpose. They have the malakut side, and they have the mulk side, which is, you know, the raindrop or the tree or the human being or the carpet or whatever. Now, all created beings are vehicles for angels. And it's difficult to decide where the being ends and where the angel begins. Really. Because Ustad says that every being is a vehicle for an angel. The thing is, I have a problem with this, because when I look at a cherry tree, I'm thinking, if the cherry tree is a vehicle for the angel, what is the cherry tree? So there has to be a very intimate, symbiotic relationship between the angel and the tree, and that can only be, I think, explained by the interface, the coin, with one face looking to Malakut, one face looking to Mulk.
I think similar to relation between our body and spirit.
I was gonna say exactly this.
Yes.
Well, why not?
Like, how can you not separate from body? You cannot separate the milk and malakut.
As if spirit of the tree is there.
Yes. Because your spirit is stretched between Mulk and Malakut anyway. Yeah? So your spirit is in Malakut, but you are in Mulk.
Yes.
Your
So-
body is in Mulk.
So what's our interface then? If angels are the interface in the kainat, in the universe, between Mulk and Malakut,
But angels are mediating you from Malakut to Mulk. You are from top to bottom angels.
so between my spirit and my body, there are angels as well
Yes,
as an interface.
yes, yes, of course, of course. Who's carrying the particles that in your eyes
Yeah.
and in your skin?
That I agree. I mean, in the material part, it's okay.
Yeah.
But what about the part where my body connects with the spirit?
I
Yeah.
don't know this.
It's not my business.
It's not my business. It's above my pay grade, as they say. Right. So we talked about we know that almost finished. I promise now, almost finished because it's very late. We talked about angels as messengers. They are rusul, right? They're bringing us messages. What messages are they bringing?
Inspiration.
They're bringing inspiration, yes, but they're also
Divine.
bringing the names.
Divine.
Names.
They're bringing the names. And some people throw up their hands in horrors when you say intermediaries, or intermediaries. Not so much messengers, we know that they're rusul, but when we talk about intermediaries, the word intermediary carries a lot of negative baggage, because you can think of helper, assistant, and we know that Allah doesn't need them. Unfortunately, when people talk about angels, well, actually no one talks about angels these days, but when they do, most people suspect that we're talking about some kind of helper. They help Allah. I mean, this is just a crazy idea, really. We have to dismiss this suspicion. God does not need help to do what He does. God does not need servants. God does not need middlemen. God does not need intermediaries. He doesn't need people to run His errands, to go and make the tea like the brothers are doing here, or to go and pick people up from the station, and all of these things that we do. But we get the idea when people say, these are intermediaries. People say, well, God doesn't need them. Well, look, He doesn't need them. He doesn't need them. But without angels, we can't know Allah.
Are the angels listening to this lesson as we are doing?
Of course.
You're enjoying.
Hopefully they're enjoying it. We'll see.
There's a
one day.
hadith, angels comes to the place, in that place Allah, and people is speaking of names of Allah.
So when we knock on the head this idea that Allah needs helpers, what we have to bear in mind is, without angels we can't know Allah.
Yes.
We can't know Allah. Angels are indispensable. They are essential. They are absolutely necessary. But what we have to bear in mind, it's we who need them, not Allah. We need them. Now, why do we need them? There's an analogy which I already used, I think, a couple of days ago. Hazrat Ustad uses the sun a lot as an analogy of Tawheed, of divine unity, and he uses it amazingly. And I borrowed from him this notion of the sun as an analogy. It's very helpful when we're talking about divine unity to use the sun, but we can also show why angels are necessary for us by using the sun as an example. If you've tried to look at the sun directly, has anyone ever tried to look at it directly? I did once very stupidly, not knowing that you have to cover your eye. You can't do it because you'll blind yourself, right? So if you've tried to look at the sun, you will realize, for example, if there's an eclipse, khusuf or kusuf, which one is which?
Sun.
Right, okay.
Yes.
When you look at the eclipse, there was an eclipse in 1999. Maybe people here weren't even born in 1999, but some of you. But there was a full eclipse in UK in 1999.
Also in Turkey, yes.
Yeah, and we were. I was teaching at university at the time, and we all ran out of the class to watch this total eclipse. But you had to watch it through a piece of card with a hole in, right? So that you didn't blind yourself looking at the sun. Because when the moon moves across the sun, suddenly the sun, if you're looking at it, you can blind it. So, and astronomers, if they want to look at the sun, what do? They put a filter, right? They put a filter on their telescope, or if you have durbin, binoculars. If you have binoculars, you can't look at the sun. You instantly blind yourself. So you need a filter, right? So astronomers have come up with all of these interesting ways of being able to look at the sun without blinding themselves. And they all use some kind of filter, right? So if we were to ask why does the sun need filters?
We need.
It's not sun. Who needs?
We need.
We need.
We need the filters. So, I mean, if we said that, okay, the sun needs me to have a filter, or the sun, it would be pretty stupid. So it's obvious that the sun doesn't need filters for me to look at it directly. I need the filter. Now, divine attributes are absolute in nature, and you cannot see them without a filter. Right? You can't see the divine attribute. If you think about Musa alayhi salam and the manifestation of Allah on the was it the bush, on the mountain, he said that if I show you myself as I am, you will become as nothing. We need the filter. The angels are the filter. Right? The angels are the filter. We need the angels because they filter the divine names through to us.
So that we can observe the manifestations of the names of Allah.
Absolutely. So they are the filter through which the Son of Divine Unity can come through to us and make sense to us. Because we can't witness Divine Unity. We can't witness Allah's Rahmah as it is. It has to be filtered, for example, through mother's milk, for example. Or through a smile of a brother, for example. These are the filters which the angels are there to do. So they're not helping Allah, they're helping us.
Yes.
So we can easily say, you know, God doesn't need helpers, but we need helpers. Finally, if you've read Tabiat, and I'm sure you've all read Tabiat Risalasi, which is another work of genius, Ustad says that the laws of nature have no agency, right? And they're just descriptions of how phenomena are function, yeah? And how animate creatures operate. They've got no external existence. There's no such thing as a law of gravity which you can touch. Same as Anna, you know, these things have no external existence. Laws are abstracted, right? From what we observe. Natural laws are just descriptions of how Allah creates. They're a kind of shorthand for Sunnatullah, right? Now, this is a question I'm asking you, and it's a serious question. It's not rhetorical. Where do the angels fit in here? Ustad says that angels are representatives and embodiments of the code of laws pertaining to creation. In other words, the next word was bearer. Absolutely. They're not just bearers of the divine names, but they're bearers of the creational laws that we call the laws of nature. Yeah. So they are kind of embodiments, tajassum, right? Of the divine creational laws. In other words, the ways in which phenomena are seen to behave, and which the biologists and the unbelieving scientists call the laws of nature, for Sayyid Nursi, they are nothing more than the way that angels behave when they carry out their duties.
Such a good.
Any questions? Any questions you can ask the brothers here?
I try to take the lessons, for example, now, inshallah, with the mercy of Allah. As soon as we look at the tree, we should remember angels.
Yes.
As soon as we look at the universe, rain, snow, mountain, ocean.
As soon as I look at you, I should remember.
Yes, to each other, we should remember angels.
You can use it natural way. So what are you looking at? I'm looking at an angel.
Why I don't understand why our scholars don't write about these things. You know, I mean, I don't want to sound like hero worshipping with Ustad because it would be wrong. But why do people not write about these things? I mean, I went to a bookshop in Malaysia a couple of years ago. Someone said, this is the most amazing bookshop. You really, really love it. And we traveled for about 3 hours to get to this bookshop, and it was huge. And there were like 2 halves in the bookshop. And this half was all fiqh, and the other half was all jihad. Nothing on aqidah, nothing on theology, nothing on belief, nothing. Why are we like this? You know, why are we like this? You know, we need this. We need to understand angels. You know, and of course, angels now in the West, for example, angels. You'll see angels are depicted like little babies, little naked babies with wings, right, flying. You know, you get them on cards. You know, on greetings cards, and like Valentine's Day, you'll get a little baby, little naked baby with wings, and that's the angel shooting an arrow, Cupid. And that's the, you know, this is how people understand angels.
It's like mythology, right?
Yeah.
It is mythologized.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in our society, in a religious school where I graduated from a specific special high school, and as Imam 5 years I
Like it's also mythology.
about angels, we have known Azrail Islam, Cebrail Islam, Israfil Islam, Mikael Islam. Ustad is saying these are like Imam, commander,
Yes.
numberless angels. With them, they are worshipping Allah. Biz only for Kiramen Katibin, Münker Nekir, that's all about angels. But the droplets of the rain, the leaves, fruits, flowers of the tree, about stuff, about holiness, about you read and you said, whatever activity in the universe, there are angels. In the Quran,
it helps you explain the purposefulness of creation,
yeah,
which the scientists deny. And I don't understand. This is a kind of sihr. You know, the scientists, because they say science. When we hear the word science, have you heard of Pavlov's dogs? You know, the Pavlovian experiment. You've all heard it.
No, I didn't.
I'm sure you
in
did
your
as
school.
well.
Pavlovian
The
dog.
example of
Pavlov's
the
dog.
Pavlov.
To train the dog giving you something.
Ah,
and
yeah.
to-
So when we hear the word science, oh, it must be correct. And scientists are saying that I see order in the creation, but it's pointless. This is, you know, this is safsata, right? It's denial of existence, actually. I see order, but it's pointless.
Yeah. Without angels.
I can find the quote, you know, I'll find the quote. He says, the more I look at the universe, and the more I see the order, the more I realize it's pointless.
In the same way,
From whom?
without Ahiret,
It's a
without
biologist,
Hereafter,
I
what
can't
happens?
remember his name, he's a famous
He's a
one.
famous one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is
Would be great if you can share it
I see
later
it.
on the group.
I'll find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because for example, there is a very wonderful meal here. There is no people. There is wonderful books in library, but nobody.
No, right.
What happens? A
It
lot
is
of
meaningless. Meaningless.
Yes, a lot of books should be readers, should be observers. There are meals, but only meals. It should be to people who are hungry. They need the meal. If we see, as soon as we see the meal, we should think that there are people.
You know why? Because we're never hungry. I mean, the people in the West generally never get hungry. I mean, actually physically never get hungry. Always eating, always grazing, they call it, and they never get conceptually hungry because they are always, you know, it's the TikTokification of society where, you know, it's distraction, constant distractions with these
They don't feel
TikTok videos like 30 seconds. And I have a granddaughter who's 7, and you know what she said to me? We were talking about phobias. Because I don't have any phobias really, but snakes, you know, I don't want to be near a snake. I said, I don't like snakes. She said to me, Baba Jun, she calls me Baba Jun. She said, you know what my phobia is? I said, what? She said, being somewhere where there's no Wi-Fi. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? A 7-year-old.
Can I ask a
Yes.
question?
Of course you can.
So you mentioned about the angels being the Rasul, basically they are transmitter of these divine names to us, right? But what about the places where there is nowhere to transmit? Or let me ask in another aspect. We also know that angels also worship Allah, in a
Yes.
sense, right?
Yes.
So can we also say that they have a face towards Allah as well?
Yes. Yes.
Like where they also receive that divine names and that they also correspond,
Yes.
while they're also transmitting those to
That reception of the names makes them worship. And the effulgence of those, the brilliance of the names that they, because we know that Allah creates from love, right? Overflowing names. So the angels receive the name and they have no option but to reflect it to us. And at the same time they glorify Allah. So they do two things. They glorify Him and they worship Him, and they also bring His message to us.
Is their worship by bringing.
And they represent the glorifications of, I think Ustad says they represent the glorifications of inanimate objects, for example, stones,
Mountain.
mountains. I'm not sure, about that, but he's right on most things, so he's probably right on that as well. But I think also in us, because there are lots of parts of us that we don't realize are glorifying, like your liver, for example. Do you ever think about your liver glorifying Allah? I don't, but it is,
Yes.
and that's because of angels. You know, if you put toxic things into your liver, you know about it. If you put good things in, you feel good, and the angels are glorifying Allah.
I have a question. So basically, what you were saying before, like how in the West angels are, pictured as like babies
Yeah.
with wings, etc. I mean, like if we look at, for example, Jibreel alayhi salatu wassalam, we have some descriptions of him because he came in human
Yeah,
form,
yeah.
and the Prophet also said like
Yeah.
if he comes in his normal form, one wing would fill the horizon.
Yeah,
But like the other angels, we have no idea what they look like.
yeah,
And like as you mentioned now, like our liver is worshiping Allah because of the angels, and our eyes are able to see because of the angels, and the cherries are because
yeah,
of the
yeah,
angels.
yeah.
Like then we actually don't know what angels are, because like we are a little bit programmed to immediately think they must have some kind of form. But theoretically speaking, could they be something like an atom, like something very tiny, very small, very maybe?
It's interesting, but what's a cherry?
Made out of apples.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the scientists,
I
everything's
think
made
they're
of
starting to
atoms.
doubt that now. Are they not?
Are they?
But I mean, you say, okay, cherries are...
No, so the atom discussion, like, it's not very relevant here, but my
Yeah.
question is more like, so what are angels? Like,
Differently
could
they
they
are
be
seen.
anything, and are there many kinds of angels, basically?
Yes.
There are many kinds of
Many
angels. I mean, I know Ustad says that rain angels are made out of rain. I know that definitely he says that. I know that Mullah Sadra...
So basically, rain is an angel.
no, the angel is the interface.
Yeah.
In the Melekut side.
The Malakut side is not, but the Mulk side is the rain. The Malakut side is the Rahman.
It's basically the other side of the mirror.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
I think rain is, as well as I understand, before I read, partner, what was the counterpart? Counterpart of the angel is the rain, the drop of rain. The representative of the droplets are the angels. Can I repeat?
Yeah.
And in this realm, in this aspect, we see counterparts
yes.
or
yeah.
mosques
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah.
angels, and angels are representing their worship, the physical things we are observing, as if they are secret.
It's a good example because you said before that, for example, when the Prophet ﷺ saw an angel, the angel is in human form.
Yes.
So maybe the angel is in
Yeah.
rain form.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I was gonna ask. Like, is it so? Like, because every time I say every droplet has an angel accompanied. Imagine like a little creature like the image you told
Yeah,
about
yeah.
the image of in the Christianity like
Yeah.
little baby with some wings
Yeah.
or some other more
Yeah, yeah.
advanced appearance accompanying the droplet. But it must be something more than that, right? So it has to be like multi-dimensional
Yeah.
interface
Yeah,
between
yeah.
because it's not like that.
I think we're too biased when we hear angel immediately.
Yeah,
think of a
I mean
shape,
that,
but like it doesn't
that,
have to
that,
be.
that
like
that's
that
because
at
we
all.
our brains are spoiled by that.
Did the
All the things
scientists
we
not
watch
say?
and-
Did the scientists not say that matter is just condensed energy? I mean, I don't know whether that's true or not because science is changing.
Like it comes to my mind like this wave particle duality in
Yeah,
physics.
yeah,
It is like sometimes it's observed as a like a wave because
Yeah.
it shows wave behavior.
Yeah.
Like it is sometimes observed as a particle
yeah,
because when it hits something,
yeah,
there's a momentum.
yeah.
So like this is two sides of the same thing.
It could be like this.
Like we can think this way.
I think quantum physics and quantum mechanics is the key to understanding angels, to be honest.
May I say something?
Which aspect
The-
of quantum?
The
I'm sorry, no. Go on. Yeah.
religion teacher, Seyfettin Bulut, he is also TV program with Ali abi. He explained. He has also teacher in a high school. Seyfettin teacher went to window and it was raining. One of the physics teacher approached him, said, Seyfettin Hoca, you will say that angel will take these drops down. He said yes. He said scientifically electrical dimension, I mean make a situation and take down. He said, Ustad says Allah created angels from electricity, from good voice, from
Light.
light, from good smell, etc. etc. I mean, Allah created this angel at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Spot on.
there is no full of angel where and then they come and take. No, at the same
Yes,
time Allah
yes,
create
yeah.
and take down all
Yes.
the drops.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You explained it much better than I could have explained it. He's spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that there are things and then angels come.
Yeah.
Allah is creating the angels at that time, and they are taking on that just as the Prophet ﷺ met the angel in the form of a person, then when it rains, the angels are in the form of rain.
You know
And
this
then the angels come in
concept
the
of
form of the electricity, like you said, we made that. So I think the whole limit is in how we perceive angels to be, because actually it's far.
For example, here, I mean, the electricity is full of. When, how can we get it? To get the turbulence. Here, the electricity started to produce. Electricity everywhere. All, I mean, the Earth or universe. But to get electricity, need to turbulence. Because of the turbulence, it collects. And turbulence doesn't make electricity. Turbulence collect and this electricity. Allah created all the Earth, but need to an apparatus to collect it. And at the same time, I mean, Allah created, angel to use any purpose.
Can I point out the place? I don't know if you had a chance to read, but in Mesnevi Nuri, there's a very nice ilam about Mulk and Malakut. Like when it says, Abim actually mentioned at the very beginning about when Arsh, you know the concept of Arsh, right? Has this like encapsulate or envelope, the Alemi Shahadat from Evveli and Akhiri and Zahir and Batini. Do you remember? Have you had a chance to read that?
I don't remember it. Do you know? Do you know what the reference?
Did you read Mesnevi
In
Nuri?
one aspect,
Yes, I read
in another
So
aspect.
basically, Arsh is enveloping
Yeah.
the Alemi Shahadat
Yes.
from Evvel and Akhiri and
Yeah.
from Batin and Zahiri. So this envelopment, like
Yeah.
this encapsulation of the Alemi Shahadat by Arsh,
Yeah.
by the Zat Ilahi, through divine names
Yeah.
and through angels
Hamalatul Arsh.
and then Alim Shahad.
Yes.
So
yeah,
it's like the exact interface and it
Yes.
fits to your
Yeah.
explanation.
Can you find
Yeah,
the
sure.
reference and send it to the group?
Sure. It's also saying like explaining like the relationship between mulk and malakut. I think it fits to this kind of.
So I think causality, is solved or solved causality, because scientists cannot explain purpose. They cannot explain life, even things being living. They can't find a cause for life. So we have the answers to it.
Actually, when we look at the seed, we cannot see the milk and malakut side, because later on it need to be flourish and
Yes.
become a tree,
Yes.
and then tree is not enough,
Yes.
and then tree need to, show the attributes of names and become a fruit.
Yes.
When we look at, seed one place and on the branch there is a fruit. This is the journey
Yes.
from seed to fruit.
Yes.
All this milk and malakut,
Yes. Absolutely.
flourish,
Yes.
and we will feel, and using the ilal evveli, ilal ahiri, ilal zahiri batini. All these,
The fruit is the malakut of the seed that we don't see it, and then when we see it, it's the mulk. Yeah. So the malakut is within the mulk.
normally it is impossible to see it.
You can't see it.
It doesn't remain.
You don't see. We don't see.
And
malakut.
then attributions, the names of
Yeah.
effects, we will get the fruit.
Alhamdulillah. Let's do Fatiha and conclusion with the dua.
We'll make
Or
those.
maybe if anyone can recite a surah or verses about angels, that will be very good.
Who's the Hafız Quran? Yes. Could you read the surah? And surah.
Supplication of angels I can read by looking at the Quran.
Okay.
About supplication of mümin. Surah mümin. يحملون العرش this page inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حاميم تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز العليم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب شديد العقاب ذي الطول لا إله إلا هو إليه المصير ما يجادل في آيات الله إلا الذين كفروا فلا يغررك تقلبهم في البلاد كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح والأحزاب من بعدهم وهمت كل أمة برسولهم ليأخذوه وجادلوا بالباطل ليدحضوا به الحق فأخذتهم فكيف كان عقاب وكذلك حقت كلمة ربك على الذين كفروا أنهم أصحاب النار الذين يحملون العرش ومن حوله يسبحون بحمد ربهم
الذين يحملون العرش ومن حوله يسبحون بحمد ربهم ويؤمنون به ويستغفرون للذين آمنوا ربنا وسعت كل شيء رحمة وعلما فاغفر للذين تابوا واتبعوا سبيلك وقهم عذاب الجحيم ربنا وأدخلهم جنات عدن التي وعدتهم ومن صلح من آبائهم وأزواجهم وذرياتهم إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم وقهم السيئات ومن تق السيئات يومئذ فقد رحمته وذلك هو الفوز العظيم صدق الله العظيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين استغفر الله العظيم الكريم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا رب إني لما أنزلت إلي من خير فقير اللهم ارزقنا حبك وحب ما يقربنا إليك اللهم لا تسلط علينا بذنوبنا اللهم زدنا علما ونورا وحلما وآتنا نعمة ظاهرة ونعمة باطنة يا مهول الحول والأحوال حول حالنا إلى أحسن الحال ربنا لا تجعلنا مع القوم الظالمين ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للقوم الظالمين ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للذين كفروا واغفر لنا ربنا إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم ربنا آمنا بما أنزلت واتبعنا الرسول فاكتبنا مع الشاهدين واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد طب القلوب ودوائها وعافية الأبدان وشفائها ونور الأبصار وضيائها وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم اللهم بحق سورة الإخلاص اجعلنا من عبادك المخلصين المخلصين آمين لله تعالى الفاتحة Brothers, from number 7 to the end of I read the supplication of angels for believers to Almighty Allah. The supplication of angels. They are also the believers who repent, the believers who perform good deeds. The angels are making supplication for them to Almighty Allah. Oh Allah, forgive them and their descendants.
Jazakallah.
Can be read.
It was very good fit inshallah with the ders.
Yes,
Elhamdülillah.
yes.
Allah razı olsun. Cezakallah hayran kesira.
Elhamdülillah.
Cezakallah. Colin hocam, thank you very much. It was a very wonderful lesson.
You actually preempted most of the things I was going to say. So,
The mercy of Allah, the bounty of Allah. Haza min fadl Rabbi. Like every bounty, the spiritual sustenance also, of course. But we are going.
Here. It will come here. Just maybe a couple of more minutes. Don't. I mean, if you need to go, of course. But there, it will be here in a couple of minutes, inshallah.